Thanks, everybody, for coming along. This is a bit of a passion for me. So it is parking, and hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll see it in a slightly different way, think about it in a slightly different way, and just when you're in cities, as you travel around, can kind of conceptualize and understand that maybe there's something else we can be doing with some of the spaces that we're devoting to a pretty inanimate object most of the time. So why am I interested in parking? It doesn't want to go. There we go. This is Calgary. This is where I'm from. It's about a city of 1.5 million people. And this doesn't want to click here. This is where I lived. So every day, the past 4 years before I came in, I would walk across that bridge, across the Bow River into downtown, and I'd go to work. And as I spent more time downtown, I just found it's pretty empty. You know, I'd spend my days there after work. I'd spend my time there in the weekends. And there's a lot of empty space that we're just leaving that's not being fully utilized. And so it doesn't show up great on here, but these orange boxes are surface parking lots. So I am approaching this from a bit of a North American point of view, but surface parking lots are effectively just giant concrete spaces that hold cars. So 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, people will drive in, they'll park their car, and they'll go to work. But weekends, evenings, during the summer when there's holidays or people bike in or walk in, there's even less utilization. So less than 25% of a given work week, that's actually being utilized. And why that matters is the era of suburbanization is coming to an end. So young people want to live in cities, old people want to come back, but there's no space. You know, catch-22 is a city, the downtown is the most expensive area, it's the most built up area, and there's not a lot of free space that you can just build on. So what I would suggest is that these parking lots provide a prime place to develop on going forward. So just to help with a little bit of the scale, parking in the US has the most parking in the world, but in Los Angeles they have 10 million meter squares of parking, which is 1,400 American football fields. I probably should have done it in British football fields, back to back. New York City has 7.5 million meters squared of parking, which is 2.1 Central Parks. So I took 2.1 Central Parks and just overlaid it to Central London there to try and give some scale. Like that's how much parking we're talking about, just all concrete, all being used for really nothing. But Americans love their cars, Canadians love their cars, Mexicans love their cars. It's a very, probably a worldwide phenomenon. But nobody really knows how much parking we have. So in the 40s, people got their cars, everybody started driving, and you want to drive for your friends, you want to drive to a movie, and you take it everywhere. So what cities did is they began to codify that. So you have a car, it began to be seen as almost a right to have a place to park your car. So they put in what they call mandatory parking minimums. So every building you build, you have to have a certain amount of parking. And where that's led is the US now has 8 parking spots for every 1 car. So on this map here, in the US, on the low end, again, because we don't really know how much parking is in the US, it is, I'm going to forget my states here. On the low end, Rhode Island and Delaware combined. On the big end, it's if you took Vermont and Connecticut and smashed them together. That's 2 billion square miles of parking in the US. So this is just a huge swath of space that we can do better, better stuff with. People like to think that parking is free. You know, a lot of this parking, we think if I get my car, I'm going to drive there, the parking lot's there, I don't pay for it, so it's free. That's not 100% true. You pay for that in other ways. So a business owner, if he has a 1,000 square foot pizzeria, most places you'll have to have 3 times that amount of space for parking. So he buys a 4,000 square foot lot just to put in a 1,000 square foot business. And you pay for it as a homeowner or as a renter. So the average homeowner in the North America, you're paying an extra $70,000, even if you don't have a car. Just buying a place that has a spot, $70,000 extra on your purchase price. For a renter, they've found that it's roughly $1,700 extra a year that you're going to pay for a parking spot. Even if you don't use it, it's just there. So a little bit about what the problem is. So how do we fix it? The first part, get rid of those mandatory parking minimums. London did that in 2004, and people thought the world was going to fall. But what they found was people still want to live in London. So houses still came, developers still came, people still live there. But in the 9 years after they got rid of those rules, 140,000 less parking spots were created. So that's just a huge amount of freed up space. In Los Angeles, they had tons of old buildings like this. gorgeous old office spaces that developers wanted to turn into housing. They wanted to turn into affordable housing. They wanted to turn it into places that people can actually use. But the city would say, well, there's no parking there. As you can see, there's not exactly a lot of places for a surface lot or an underground lot. So they never did anything until finally, in the late 90s, they were finally able to convince them to ease those rules. And what they found was in the 6 years after they changed those rules, 3,000 more buildings were converted than in the 30 years previously. So just a huge, huge increase in housing. But it doesn't always have to be like that. That's legislative ways to change things. And then there's some slightly smaller ways we can take. So this is New York City, the Pearl Street Triangle. This was done under Mayor Bloomberg. Janet Sedekon was the DOT head. What they did is they took all those cars, just kicked them away, and they painted it green. They made it a park. So that is just cement that's painted green with a couple umbrellas and chairs on it. And what they found was people were more engaged. They were happier to be out in the city. They met their neighbors more often. And instead of housing 25 cars, they made a place where people could go and communicate and be part of a community. So those are some smaller ones, but where they really want to go, and where I think we'll have to go in the future, something like this. So this is the 9x18 project done by a group of architects. What they found was like a parking spot, it's 9 feet by 18 feet. If you take 4 of those, you get a New York studio. You take 4 more of those, you get nearly a 2-bedroom apartment. You take more of those and more of those and more of those, and you layer them on top of each other, and all of a sudden you have a nice place, you have affordable housing, you've made hundreds of new housing stock that you can house people in. So that's where I think we need to go. That's where I hope the future of parking is. That's where I hope the future of our cities is. So thank you for listening for me. I flew through this a lot faster than I usually do. I don't know what I missed out. There's probably some stuff I didn't say, but whatever. Some websites and stuff here, but more than anything, I guess, go out and volunteer. Every city has an organization that's looking for people that are keen to improve their cities, and they'll take it no matter what experience you have. So look around for those, and they're always helpful. So thank you.